When the season started, if you asked most Warrior fans, hey, who would play the most consistent role this year amongst the three young guys, Kuminga, Wiseman, or Moody? I think the consensus overwhelmingly would have been Moses Moody. Now, you would have some that would hope that it's Wiseman or hope that it's Kuminga. But if you were paying attention to what the organization was saying and what the veterans were saying, it seemed like you could pencil in Moses Moody for a rotation spot this year. And that was the plan, right? He's ingratiated himself with the vets, wise beyond his years, and that versatile wing position can always kind of get slotted in there. Season starts out, he's in the rotation, right? And they're not winning, right? The disappointment, right? And so you're starting to shuffle things around here. And I don't think Moses got pulled from the rotation for his offense. It was his defense. And the issue where they were over fouling, it was that trip east where the fouls were just ridiculous. And we could talk about the refs at another time. But it was Moses's defense that got him out of the rotation. And it was fouling. Contests were undisciplined, right? Leaving his feet. But I think what Moses has to do is he's got to recalibrate his athleticism for the NBA, right? It's all relative. At high school, he was a really good athlete. College, he was a pretty good athlete, right? In the NBA, he's a lower level athlete, if you want to be honest about it, right? And I don't think he realizes that yet. And you see signs of that on both ends of the floor. But indeed, on the defensive end in particular, he crowds the ball or his man as if he's very quick laterally, right? And if you think about it, he's playing into his weakness and he's neglecting his strength when you talk about attributes, because his greatest attribute is his length. He's got a 7-foot+ wingspan, right? But his greatest weakness attribute and athletically is got to be his lateral quickness. And so what happens when he gets up on the ball or he gets up on his man chest to chest, he's inviting them to test his lateral quickness and he is neutralizing his length. And I'm actually surprised that he hasn't quite figured this out yet. I know he's a young guy, not a lot of experience, but the fact that he has been around Andre Iguodala every day for 2 seasons now, because Andre is the master of distance management, right? Visualize Andre defending. When have you ever seen him crowd a ball handler? He's always got arm's length, right? And then he uses the hands very well to strip and rip. Now, you crowd a ball handler when they pick the ball up. They don't have their dribble, right? There is times for it. You're sending a trap, stuff like that. But just generally speaking, the distance management is so important, especially if you're lacking lateral quickness, and he's got the length to make up for it. So I don't know why he's kind of defending in the opposite manner that I would have him approaching it. Right. And he's got to clean that up. And then on the offensive end, you see signs of that delusion of grandeur when it comes to his athleticism when he attacks the basket. He takes some bad falls. He takes some bad spills. And even Saturday night, right, you saw him drive baseline. He tried to do the up and under Jordan move. It wasn't even close. He really thinks he has bounce. Now, if he has a long runway and he can get that 1-2 step, the 2-footed plant, yeah, he can get up, but if you really slow it down and watch it, it's not that he's elevating, he's just elongating, like we talked about with Draymond. And so Moody has to understand, hey, I'm not going to beat guys with my verticality or my quickness. I'm going to win with my length and my strength and my positioning. And he hasn't been using his length because he's out of position. If he can defend better, I think he can find himself back in the rotation. I say all that to say, well, Saturday night he played, right? That's why we're talking about Moses Moody. I guess I buried the lead a little bit here. I got into the weeds of it too quickly, right? So Saturday night, Clay's sitting out on the back end of a back-to-back against the Rockets, and Moody gets his opportunity, right? And it's such a cliche thing in sports. Hey, stay ready so you ain't got to get ready. Just wait for your opportunity. Well, that's what Moody did. You know, did he miss a 3-ball? He came out locked and loaded and ready, and it's an underrated trait on bench guys. Now, some bench guys, they're just not going to play. It is what it is, right? But the volume for especially a young player, because Moses Moody, listen, I don't think he was give me the ball, get out of my way guy at any level. Maybe in middle school, right? But in high school, he played with Cade, Scotty Barnes in Florida at that factory, right? But I do think he's always been a heavy minute player, meaning he plays 30 minutes a game his whole life. And so now to come in and play 10 minutes and still get it done and catch a rhythm, that's a tough ask for some young guys. But what's even tougher is to stay ready and be engaged and contribute when called upon. And that's what was so valuable about Damian Lee over the last few seasons, because D. Lee, he'd be out of the rotation for like 2 weeks at times, right? Couple weeks. Someone rolls an ankle, someone's sick, and Kerr calls on him, and he's ready to go. He's ready to go, right? He's in shape. He knows the sets. He's not afraid to take the shot. He'll take some timely shots, right? And so for Moses to flash that capability Saturday night against the Rockets is impressive at his age. And he may have to do that all season long when you look at the depth at his spot. Because we can also talk about some of it was the defense, right? And the fouling. I think that's why they backed off him. But also, you just look at the roster construction. You got Clay back now for the whole season. Jordan Poole is now $100 million third guard where he's got to play 20, 25 minutes, right? That's just written into the contract. It's not, but it is. Anthony Lamb has cracked the rotation. Oh, yeah, and then Dante DiVincenzo comes back off the hamstring, and he's playing well. So there's not a lot of spots. It's going to be competitive to play off the bench for this team when they're healthy. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. The internal competition should make everybody raise their games. It looks like it's going to make Moody raise his game right now. And I think early in the season, especially that East Coast road trip when they were just struggling to stay above water, right? It was just like, they were scrambling to just stay in games. That's how bad it was. I don't think Kerr could really necessarily focus on that. But now that the team has kind of settled in, turned the corner, as Kerr put it, and just got back to playing Warrior basketball, I think Steve can push that button of internal competition a little more, right? And it's a delicate thing, especially when you got vets and young guys. You got JaMychal, you got Dante. These guys, it's a different phase in their careers, and I think they expect their opportunities, but nothing is given. That's the way it needs to be coached. Whoever performs, but then how do you get a consistent role? So it's not an easy thing, but I think with all these guys healthy, Kerr can play on that competition and hold these young guys accountable, make them rise to the occasion. And Moses Moody looks like he's more than game to do so. When you look at Poole and DiVincenzo ahead of Moody in the rotation, rightfully so, right? But you say, okay, what can Moody do to get in there and crack that? Like, what does he do better than those guys? Does he rebound better? Maybe he's certainly better than Poole. I don't know about Dante. Dante is a pretty good rebounder, right? He's not a better playmaker than either of them. Does he shoot it better? He might be in between them. It depends, right? He might be a little more consistent. I think the one thing that he's shown the ability to do is get to the foul line, right? And part of it is maybe that overambitious athleticism that he has, but right, he is not afraid of contact. He is more physical than them. And that's saying quite a bit when you talk about DiVincenzo, who's a physical player himself. Moody is very physical, almost to a fault on the defensive end, right? But he does show the ability to get to the line. We've seen him. He's not afraid to take the big shot in big moments. And so I guess I'll wrap this Moses Moody segment up with a question for y'all. Everybody has been in the trade machine trying to figure out how the Warriors can add some more size in particular, if you ask most people, right? James Wiseman is the obvious guy that's getting put in that machine, right? But it's the young guys. It's the three young guys that seem like the assets that could be moved for another player. I'm not even going to ask you about Kuminga. I think everybody wants to hold on to him. How do you feel about Moody right now? I know he's been out of the rotation. He getting good game Saturday night. Are you willing to part with him for a contributing big body? Because the reality of the situation is right now, he probably has more value than James Wiseman, right? A 2-3 wing who can shoot the three, young guy, high character, right? Like he has some value. He really is probably the guy that teams ask about in these discussions, right? Outside of, because when you're not talking big money players and like big, like monumental shifts and trades, when it's these like bench player trades, Moody is probably the guy that teams are interested in. And so I ask you, are you willing to give him up for a veteran big? And not necessarily a sexy name, but a big body that can rebound and some insurance for Kevon and Draymond. Personally, I think you got to make that move, even if it's for just a 1-year rental on somebody that can help. When you look at what Steph Curry looks like this year, Draymond motivated, right? And just, you owe it to them. I know we hear that all over Bay Area talk, right? But we owe it to them to make that move if they can. And that's not a diss to Mood. It's just the reality of the situation, right? Pacers tonight. I'm excited to get a look at Halliburton, the lead dog, Benedict Mathurin. That was an easy call. Look, I'm not saying he should have been the first pick in the draft, but when you looked at the top 10 guys and you watched him at Arizona, it's like, oh, he's going to be good. He's going to be good. Like he was one of the safer picks in that lottery, and Indiana is reaping the rewards. Carlisle, a perfect coach for these young guys. It's not going to be an easy game, but the Dubs, they got to rack up these wins. You look ahead at the schedule, it ain't getting no easier. Hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.